The music changed first, not the volume or the genre, just the feeling underneath it. He started coming home with playlists I didn't recognize, songs I'd never heard him listen to before. Pop remixes, electronic beats with no lyrics, the kind of music that felt designed for motion, for sweat, for bodies and rhythm. He'd leave his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered, and those unfamiliar songs would keep playing, filling the house with a pulse that didn't belong to us. I didn't think anything of it. Not at first. This was October, and we'd been married 9 years. Long enough that routines had calcified into something comfortable and predictable. He worked in finance. I taught 5th grade. We had a daughter, 8 years old, who drew elaborate maps of imaginary countries and left them taped to the refrigerator. Our life was small, and ours and good in the way that quiet things can be good. Unremarkable, steady, held together by 1,000 repeated gestures that neither of us questioned anymore. He'd hired a personal trainer in September. I'd encouraged it. He'd been talking about getting back in shape for months, complaining about his back, about how tired he felt climbing stairs. The gym membership had been gathering dust for 2 years. When he finally started going 3 times a week, I was relieved. Proud, even. He seemed lighter, more energized. He'd come home with color in his face and talk about burpees and kettlebells and something called a Turkish get-up that made him laugh when he tried to describe it. Her name was Mara. He mentioned it once, maybe twice. A trainer at the gym, early 30s, good at what she did. That was all I knew. That was all I thought I needed to know. The workouts ran late, 7 o'clock sessions that stretched to 8, then 8:30. He'd text me from the parking lot. Sorry, went long, home soon. I'd keep his dinner warm. Our daughter would already be in her pajamas, reading in bed. By the time he walked through the door, the house had settled into its nighttime rhythm, and he'd slip into it quietly, smelling like exertion and the peppermint soap from the gym locker room. I didn't know then that this would be the last autumn I'd sleep well. The house we lived in was a split level built in the 70s, with narrow hallways and windows that rattled when the wind picked up. It had been mine before it was ours, inherited from my grandmother, painted over and patched, but still fundamentally hers in small, stubborn ways. The kitchen tiles were yellow. The bathroom mirror had a crack in the upper left corner that I'd never bothered to fix. Every sound carried. You could hear someone walking from one end of the house to the other, hear the hum of the refrigerator from the bedroom, hear the click of the thermostat adjusting itself at 2 in the morning. That's how I heard it the first time. He was in the shower. I was folding laundry in the bedroom, sorting socks into pairs, half listening to the music, still playing from his phone on the nightstand. A song I didn't recognize. Mid-tempo, instrumental, the kind of background noise you barely register. And then, underneath the beat, so faint I almost missed it, a voice. Not singing, speaking. A woman's voice, soft and close, like she was whispering directly into the microphone. I couldn't make out the words, just the cadence, the intimacy of it. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, buried so deep in the mix that if I'd been doing anything else, I wouldn't have noticed at all. I stopped folding, stood there with one of his t-shirts in my hands, staring at the phone. The shower shut off, the music kept playing. I waited for the voice to come back, but it didn't. Just the beat, looping and anonymous. When he came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair dripping onto his shoulders, I asked him about the playlist. What playlist? The one you've been listening to, the workout stuff. He shrugged, pulling a shirt over his head. Mara makes them. She sends them to her clients, keeps us motivated. She makes them herself? Yeah, she's really into it. Music theory, tempo, all that. She says the right playlist can make you work 20% harder. He said it casually, like it was trivia, like it didn't mean anything. I folded the shirt. That's nice of her. Yeah, she's great. He kissed the top of my head and went to check on our daughter. I stood there in the bedroom, holding a pair of his socks, trying to identify the feeling spreading through my chest. Not suspicion, not yet. Just a faint, shapeless unease, like the air pressure had changed and I was the only one who'd noticed. The receipts started appearing a week later, not hidden, just there. In his jacket pocket when I took it to the dry cleaner, on the kitchen counter next to his keys, small crumpled slips of paper from the smoothie placed next to the gym. Always 2 drinks, always the same day of the week, Thursday. His training sessions were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I didn't ask about them. I told myself it didn't matter. Maybe he was going in on his off days. Maybe he liked the smoothies. Maybe he was meeting a friend. I cycled through every reasonable explanation and accepted all of them because the alternative felt too large to hold. But I started listening to the music more carefully. He'd leave his phone unlocked sometimes, and I'd scroll through his recent playlists while he was outside taking out the trash or helping our daughter with her homework. They all had names like Push and Interval Burn and Endurance Plus, and they were long, 40, 50 minutes of seamless electronic beats. I'd play them softly through my earbuds while I graded papers at the kitchen table, waiting for that voice to surface again. It did, always in different songs, always brief, a whispered word buried in the bridge, a laugh tucked under the bass line. Once I heard her say his name, just his first name, soft and amused, like she was teasing him about something. I pressed pause, sat there staring at the screen, then I pressed play and kept listening. By November, he was going to the gym 4 times a week, then 5. He started talking about nutrition, about macros, about meal prep. He bought a blender and started making protein shakes in the morning, the sound of it cutting through the house at 6:30, waking me before my alarm. He'd stand at the counter in his gym clothes, scrolling through his phone, drinking something green and thick that smelled like grass and almonds. "You should come with me sometime," he said one Saturday morning. "Mara could train both of us." "I'm good," I said. "I like my yoga classes." "Yeah, but this is different. It's more, I don't know, focused. You'd like her." I didn't say anything. Just poured my coffee and watched him drink his shake, watched the way he checked his phone every few minutes, watched the way his whole body seemed oriented towards something I couldn't see. Our daughter asked once why Daddy was always at the gym. "He's getting healthy," I told her. "He looks the same," she said. She was right. He did. A little leaner, maybe. A little more defined in the shoulders. But mostly the same. The change wasn't in his body, it was in his attention, in the way he seemed to be listening to something I couldn't hear, waiting for something I couldn't name. At night, he'd fall asleep with his earbuds in, playlists still running. I'd lie awake beside him, feeling the faint vibration of bass through the mattress, watching the glow of his phone screen reflected on the ceiling. Sometimes I'd reach over and pull one earbud free, just to hear what he was listening to as he drifted off. Always her playlists, always that buried voice, threading through the music like a secret frequency. The passwords changed in mid-November, his phone, his laptop, the streaming accounts we shared. He said it was for security. Something about a data breach at work, company policy. Everyone had to update everything. He said it apologetically, like it was an inconvenience for both of us, and I nodded and said I understood. I did understand, just not in the way he thought. I started paying attention to the small things, the way he angled his phone away from me when a notification came through, the way he took calls in the car, even when he was just sitting in the driveway. The new cologne, subtle, expensive, nothing like what he usually wore. The fact that he'd started closing the bathroom door when he brushed his teeth, something he'd never done in 9 years of marriage. None of it was proof. All of it was evidence. I didn't confront him. I didn't even know what I'd be confronting him about. What was I supposed to say? "You've been acting different. Your music has a woman's voice in it. You smell like someone else's expectations." Instead, I became an archaeologist of our life, excavating meaning from the mundane. I checked the mileage on his car against the distance to the gym. I noted the days he showered twice. I listened to the cadence of his texts, the timestamps, the way he used to text in full sentences and now sent single words. Yeah, sure, sounds good. Our daughter started sleeping in our bed again, something she hadn't done in years. She'd wake up from bad dreams and crawl between us, her small body a barrier neither of us acknowledged. He'd shift to the far edge of the mattress. I'd wrap myself around her. We'd all pretend to sleep. The confrontation happened in December, in the kitchen, at 9:15 on a Wednesday night. He'd texted at 7 to say training was running late, then 8, then nothing. Our daughter was asleep. I'd left his dinner on the stove, covered with foil. I was sitting at the table with a mug of tea I hadn't drunk, just holding it, feeling the heat seep into my palms. When he finally walked in, he looked tired. Not guilty, not ashamed, just tired, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long and had finally set it down somewhere I couldn't see. "Hey," he said. "Sorry, lost track of time." I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He set his gym bag down, ran a hand through his hair. What? Who is she? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we'd both been pretending not to know, everything that had been building in the spaces between us for months. He didn't ask what I meant. That was how I knew I was right. It's not what you think, he said finally. What do I think? He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. It's just training, that's all it is. Training doesn't require playlists with her voice in them. His face changed. You listen to my music? You left it playing. That's private. Is it? I was surprised by how calm I sounded, how steady, like I was discussing something that had happened to someone else, a story I'd heard secondhand. Those smoothie receipts on Thursdays, the late sessions, the new passwords, all of that. Private? He was quiet for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. The hallway clock ticked. Outside on Petit, a car drove past, its headlights sweeping across the kitchen wall. Nothing happened, he said. Something happened. Maybe not what you think I think, but something. You're different. You're not here even when you're here. I'm trying to be better. For us. For us? Or for her? He didn't answer that. He just stood there, arms still crossed, looking at a spot somewhere over my shoulder. I realized he couldn't meet my eyes. Does she know about me? I asked about our daughter. Of course she does. Does she care? It's not like that. Then what is it like? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know, he said finally. I feel like I can breathe when I'm there, like I'm not failing at anything. She believes I can do things I forgot I could do. And I know that's not fair to you. I know it's not your job to make me feel that way, but you found someone who does. I found someone who sees me differently than you do. The truth of it landed between us like something dropped from a great height. I looked at my husband, this man I'd shared 9 years with, this father of my child, this person whose socks I folded and whose dinner I kept warm, and I didn't recognize the expression on his face. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't love. It was relief. Relief at finally saying it out loud. Okay, I said. Okay, what? Okay, I understand. I stood up, poured my cold tea into the sink, rinsed the mug, put it in the dishwasher. He watched me do all of this like he was trying to memorize it, like he'd need to recall these exact movements later and wasn't sure he'd get them right. What happens now? He asked. I don't know, I said. But it doesn't matter if nothing happened. It matters that you wanted it to. I left him standing in the kitchen and went to bed. Not to our bed, to the guest room down the hall, the one we used for storage, with boxes of my grandmother's things still stacked against the wall. I lay down on top of the covers with all my clothes on and listened to the house settle around me. He didn't follow. I didn't expect him to. After that night, we became performers in our own life. We woke up, made breakfast, took our daughter to school. We asked each other about our days. We split chores and paid bills and attended parent-teacher conferences. We were polite, cooperative, efficient. We looked from the outside like people who were making it work. But the space between us had become its own room, a room we both lived in but never entered together. He stopped going to the gym. I didn't ask him to. One day he just didn't go, and then he didn't go the next day or the day after that. His gym bag stayed by the door for a week before I moved it to the closet. He didn't say anything about it. Neither did I. The playlists disappeared from his phone. The smoothie receipts stopped appearing. His password stayed changed, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't looking. Our daughter turned 9. We threw her a birthday party, magician, cake, 12 screaming kids in our backyard. He stood beside me while she blew out the candles, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, and anyone watching would have thought we were fine. Maybe we were. Maybe fine is what you call it when you've both agreed to stop asking for more. By February, he'd started sleeping in the guest room permanently. Not because we'd fought, not because anything had escalated, just because it seemed easier for both of us. One night he asked if I minded, and I said I didn't, and that was that. We told our daughter he was having trouble sleeping, that he didn't want to keep me awake with his tossing and turning. She accepted it the way children accept anything their parents tell them with confidence. The house felt larger, sounds carried differently. I could hear him moving around at night, hear the creak of the guest bed frame when he rolled over, hear the soft glow of his phone screen casting light under the door. I never asked what he was looking at. I didn't want to know. We existed in parallel, two people in the same house, orbiting the same child, managing the same logistics, but never quite touching. Not with anger, not even with sadness, just with the quiet understanding that we'd become roommates in a marriage that was still technically alive but no longer growing. I don't know if he still talks to her. I assume he doesn't. I assume whatever that was, that brightness, that breathing room, that version of himself he could only find in her presence, got folded back into wherever it came from. I assume he mourned it. I assume he still does. I mourned something too. Not him exactly, not even us, but the version of us I'd believed in. The one where attention was enough, where proximity meant intimacy, where love was what you called it when two people agreed to keep showing up. I still love him. That's the strange part. Not the same way. Not with hope, but with the kind of tenderness you reserve for something that used to be beautiful and now exists only as memory. He is the father of my child. He is kind to waiters. He still brings me coffee in the morning, made exactly how I like it, and sets it on the nightstand without a word. But when I hear music now, any music, not just his playlists, I listen for the spaces between the notes. I listen for the things that are buried so deep you could miss them if you weren't paying attention. I listen for proof that what you think you know about your life might be incomplete, that underneath the ordinary surface, a different truth is always playing. Spring came. The trees outside our house budded and bloomed. Our daughter drew maps of new countries, islands this time, with complicated coastlines and cities named after things she loved. My fifth graders learned fractions and read Bridge to Terabithia and asked me questions I didn't know how to answer about whether loving someone means forgiving them for everything. He got a promotion at work. We celebrated quietly, dinner at the Italian place we used to go to before our daughter was born, conversation that moved politely from topic to topic without ever landing anywhere real. He ordered wine. I didn't. We clinked glasses anyway. To us, he said. To us, I repeated. Neither of us specified what that meant anymore. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is completely still and everyone else is asleep, I think about the moment it all changed. Not the confrontation, not the discovery, but the exact second when the door between what we were and what we became finally closed. I think it was that first whisper I heard in the music, that tiny buried voice that shouldn't have been there, that evidence of intimacy that existed somewhere outside our life, in a space I hadn't known existed until I heard it. Or maybe it was earlier. Maybe it was the first night he came home smelling like someone else's expectations, or the first time he said her name without thinking, or the first moment he realized he could want something more than what we had, and that wanting it didn't make him a monster, just human. The truth is, I'll never know exactly when it happened. Relationships don't end in single moments. They end in thousands of small moments, each one barely noticeable, each one taking you one step further from where you started. You don't realize you're lost until you look back and can't see the beginning anymore. Our daughter asked me once if Daddy and I still loved each other. Yes, I said. Just differently than before. What's the difference? I thought about it for a long time. Before, love felt like coming home. Now it feels like visiting a place you used to live. She considered this. Is that sad? Sometimes, but it's also just true. She went back to her drawing, another island, another imaginary world where everything could be exactly as she wanted it. I watched her work, the small person we'd made together, this proof that love had once been simple and complete. He's still in the guest room, I'm still in ours. The space between us has become permanent, something we move around rather than through. We are civil. We are cooperative. We are good at pretending that this is what we always expected, that this is close enough to what we promised each other 9 years ago. Maybe it is. Maybe every marriage is just a series of recalibrations, adjustments to the gap between what you hoped for and what you got. Maybe what broke between us wasn't unique or special, just the ordinary erosion that happens when two people realize they're not who the other person needs them to be. I don't listen to his music anymore. I don't check his phone, or look for receipts, or search for evidence of a life I'm not part of. Not because I trust him more, but because I've accepted that there will always be parts of him I don't have access to, parts that belong to the version of himself he was with her or might have been, or wanted to be. And I'm okay with that. Not happy, not settled, just okay in the way you're okay when you've stopped fighting gravity. The ending came quietly, like most real endings do. We were sitting at the dinner table one evening in April. Him, me, our daughter between us, chattering about her day, about a new friend at school who could do cartwheels and wanted to teach her. He was listening with that half-present attention parents perfect over years of practice, nodding at the right moments, asking the occasional question. I looked at him across the table. This man who had once been my whole future, this person I'd built a life with one ordinary day at a time, and felt nothing but a distant fondness, the kind you might feel for an old photograph that used to mean something. He met my eyes, held them, and I saw that he felt it too. Not resentment, not regret, just recognition. We had become exactly what we were, always going to become, two good people who had tried and failed to be enough for each other. Our daughter kept talking, we kept listening. The moment passed. That night, I lay in bed alone and thought about Mara for the first time in months. I didn't picture her face. I had never seen it. I didn't imagine their sessions together or try to reconstruct what had passed between them. I just acknowledged that somewhere out there was a woman who had given my husband something I couldn't, and that this fact didn't make her a villain or me a failure. It just made her human, and him human, and me human. We were all just people, trying to feel something other than ordinary, trying to believe we mattered in the specific and irreplaceable way we needed to matter. The music had changed first, but what changed last was simpler. The belief that love by itself was ever going to be enough. Peace came quietly, disguised as understanding.